Welcome, chat. Welcome. There's a man on my screen. Oh boy. Oh boy. Do you guys know anything about James Lindsay? James Lindsay is you know those kids in like 90s, early 2000s, like after school TV specials, and it's about like, hey, don't bully kids. Don't bully them. He's the kid in the first scene that gets shoved real hard into a locker and like locked inside of it, except he's the only one that's ever really truly deserved it. Right? You don't feel bad for this guy getting shoved into lockers. He's like that. That's who James Lindsay is. He's also endlessly obsessed with critical race theory. He is just cringy in his obsession with stuff. He doesn't have hobbies. He doesn't like do other stuff. He spends, in his own words, like 12 hours a day just like seething over like Ibram X. Kendi literature. Like, it's really, really, really sad. So this is James Lindsay, not this black screen, but this guy right here.
So what is critical race theory? Everybody says we can't define it. Well, my name is James Lindsay, and I've been studying this stuff for a while, and I'm making an encyclopedia on my website called newdiscourses.com.
Man, he's just such a magnetic public speaker, isn't he? What a good... He's so good at making content. Hello, welcome. My name is James Lindsay, and do you know about CRT? I do know about it, and it's bad. I don't like it at all, and so you shouldn't either. And I'll tell you why you shouldn't like that. Because, you know, I have a website.
The encyclopedia is called Translations from the Wokish, and I can tell you what critical race theory is. They say we can't define it. Let's break it down.
He said that twice. We can't define it. Well, I got an encyclopedia. We can't define it. Let's break it down. Also, the way his lip curled over his teeth here is haunting me. I don't like that. Computer enhanced. Can you see this? Like, something about just that pause made it icky. Yeah, let me have James Lindsay to tell me what critical race theory is. Let's hear it, buddy.
Let's define it.
All right.
Critical race theory is a movement in scholarship, activism, and especially law and getting into education and other fields that's designed to reconsider the relationship between race, racism, and power.
Okay, sure. It did it again. That's just how his lips work. Yeah, okay. A movement. The critical race theory is a movement, I guess. So I'll allow it for purposes of this video. A movement. It's very broad. It's getting into everything. It's infecting us all.
To be more frank about it, it is the belief that the fundamental organizing principle of society is racism.
I could be wrong. Does critical race theory purport that the fundamental organizing aspect of society is in fact race? I have never heard that. What? I think it's definitely it considers race in that organization. It doesn't say that that's the only thing. I don't think there'd be like one proponent of critical race theory. Like if you said, okay, what's the number one thing that organizes like society in the United States insofar as like social stratification is concerned? I would think they'd say capital, right? Like money, like economics, and then they'd say something like race is up there. Don't get me wrong, but probably gender maybe after that, and then race maybe, sexuality somewhere in there after, like way down the way as far as like is it negatively affecting you or positively? I think sexuality probably dropped away, but like because you can't just like ocular pat down somebody usually and be like, oh, that guy's straight. The socks and sandals will let you know though.
And that this racism was created by white people specifically to oppress people of other races, and that they maintain that racism so that they can maintain their own advantage in society.
Wow, he just fundamentally misunderstands this. I don't think critical race theory would say that these people are definitely doing it on purpose, right? Like, I think a lot of critical race theory is about how we innately go about, like, doing racist activities, or at least activities that, are to the detriment of people that are not the ruling white class, I suppose. Which is obviously it's changing over time, and that's for the better, because we don't want white people to not have any power. I mean, some might, like a black nationalist might, but like most people agree that like your skin color shouldn't matter. It should be your aptitude. It should be, and then if it's something like voting, well, there's certain aspects where, well, you need certain voices in places like for instance, the abortion debate. It doesn't make any sense that a bunch of people that can't have any children would have a discussion. I'm fine if you have a voice in there, but like, what was it, 2016 or something? There was a whole gaggle of just old white dudes that were in charge of that. I was like, why not people that this directly affects having a voice? Similarly, you'd want, roughly your representatives to represent the interests of people, and only because, and I think he would, and a lot of racist and anti-CRT people think that, like, well, we have to pick based on merit, and that's true, but you also want to pick based on, like, because of governmental representation. Specifically, you want people to be represented, and since we're not as homogenous, and because there is, like, if there wasn't political division about race or sexuality or gender or any of those things, you wouldn't need representation from those groups because it wouldn't be a problem. We would stop stratifying based on those criteria, right? So, I mean, you cause the problem that you're mad about when you're James Lindsay. And like, experiences merit. I agree with that. Like, I agree with that, but that's not what they think, right? Like, that said, I don't think you can just be some person. You should probably have some sort of political understanding, and you should be able to, but there are people under all circumstances and all demographics that are viable options for these things. And and we're not even saying like force it. We're just saying like have an option at the table for people, and then understand like, hey, someone's experience could be bad. Why is that bad? Because I, as a white person, a straight person, whatever, a cis person, like, I don't experience XYZ. What is your experience with it? And then, we can have that dialogue. It's all about dialogue. I thought these guys were free speech warriors. I don't know. I think it's interesting that like, it's free speech, but the way we want it, okay? I want free speech when I'm talking, not when you're talking. White is an exclusionary social construct? Well, yeah, but I mean, like,
That's what critical race theory is all about. We could also say that it's a neo-Marxist strategy to make
I love this sort of like Home Depot radio commercial music in the background. Pretty nice.
Use of racial minorities to try to make way for a cultural revolution in America, just like Herbert Marcuse wrote in 1969 in his so-called Essay on Liberation. So that's another thing that critical race theory actually is. It is the attempt to use race to break open America.
To break open America. What does that mean? Does that have a meaning? To break it open. Like an egg? I didn't know America was trans, but fuck yeah. Like, it just doesn't. Are we a deal? Look, I don't know what that means at all. Break open America. They always say that, like, leftists want to destroy America. And then, like, when they talk to me, I'm like, okay, what do you think I want to destroy? And they're like, our values. I'm like, yeah, I guess the value of, like, that people don't deserve healthcare or, like, freedom to live their life, or sure, those values are trash. Like, we could get better values. There's some good stuff, though. I like the idea of, like, separation of church and state, and the civil liberties that we're supposed to have. Like, we could also expand those civil liberties, though. And they don't really understand. Like, I don't know a leftist until they become tankies. I don't know a leftist that wants to restrict freedoms for people. You know what I mean? I always hear, and I'm sure you do too. You always hear this sort of like, oh, they're trying to take our freedoms and trying to like tear down the fabric of America. And it's like, bro, I just want you to have housing. I don't need landlords to succeed under capitalism as much as I need you not to be unintentionally homeless, right? Like, you can go live off the grid all you want, but I don't know. Just very strange. James Lindsay is a weird guy. Weird cat.
For a communist-style revolution based now in equity rather than in pure communism. So critical race theory is pretty easy to understand. It's a belief system.
Wait, is he anti-equity? Did I mishear that? What?
Equity rather than in for a communist style revolution based now in equity rather than in pure communism.
Hold on. Come on. I mean, well, come on. What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? Not? Am I gonna not? Of course I am. Better go here just in case porn pops up.
So critical race theory is pretty easy to understand. It's a belief system that believes that the ordinary state of affairs in our society is racism, that racism hides itself rather than gets better, has permanence to it, and it takes somebody called a critical race theorist to be able to find that racism, call it out, and hopefully bring us to a place where we can overthrow the entire system.
What? The entire system? Bro, it's... I don't think that a critical race theorist thinks, only I can save America. I think anytime I've ever talked to somebody... And by the way, critical race theory is not this like fucking thing that he's saying it is. Obviously, it doesn't have roots in like your homes. it's a law thing. It's to discover law and try to drive equity in law. But anyway, the theory itself can be extrapolated, obviously, and I don't think anyone's saying that like racism. He implies so much like anthropomorphism to it. Implying that like racism has like motivations, when really it's just like leftover cultural shit, right? That we haven't cleaned up. So like recently the Democrats, I think just today, there was an initiative to like really tamp down like whatever remains of like the redlining activities. The idea that hiring practices for jobs. Sometimes we'll turn down somebody with a complex name. You know what I'm saying? It's a name that sounds black, whether it is or not. Just these like weird holdovers of racism. Obviously, there's bigger stuff like policing is definitely inherently racist in a lot of ways. Whether or not the cops themselves are individually KKK members is irrelevant when the sort of way that you police targets those communities. And I know James Lindsay would be like, well, they should stop committing crimes. It's like, why do people commit crimes? And then you get down the whole systemic issue of like poverty usually causes this. Why is there poverty? You get it. You're leftist. But like, it's not like, it's not that complicated. It's more of like a time thing. Like, I don't think even like if we were in charge, us leftists, if we were just in charge to run the way that we wanted to, there'd still be racism, but it would just be like, we would be able to reduce the systemic issues, and it would be more interpersonal racism, which is, of the racisms, the most, like, easy to deal with, I think. Alan Michael, thanks for the 30 months. Wow. Long time. Just tuning in for the first time and seeing JPEG corn on the screen. Yeah, hell yeah. Think we want everyone to call out racism? Right, just being anti-racist. I don't know. He's so weird about it.
Throws out the idea of step-by-step progress or incrementalism. It wants to overhaul the entire system in a social and cultural revolution that it's going to lead to bring us to a post-racial utopia.
That's not... Again, I don't think... First of all, what's wrong with a post-racial utopia? Like, even if you don't think it's attainable, right? What's the problem with the concept? Because I don't know it. I genuinely don't understand the problem. Like, utopia, I tend to agree. I don't think most people think that we can attain utopia. The point is like, well, let's try. And then if we can get to that, great. We can't. But like, that's the point, right? Like, what is the point of like organizing and existence in general if we're not trying to constantly improve our living conditions, right? Like, what's the... It doesn't really make any sense. It's not what CRT is anyway. Of course not, but it doesn't matter. He's for incrementalism. If he's for incrementalism, which would be the incremental improvement of material conditions and social conditions for people that live here, why is he in the way of them? Why get in the way of that? What do you think is an improvement, right? Like, so would fewer racists be a good thing? Would fewer racist policies and systems be a good thing? I would hope he would agree. He would disagree what's racist about it, but what if we just, like, so what's the problem if I change it based, because I guess he almost has like a genetic fallacy about it, right? Like, what if I want to make policing better, right? And I do, because they can be more specialized and more attuned to the problem that whatever the 911 call happens to be. Why is that a bad thing? That seems more efficient. It seems more streamlined. It seems like it would be less wasteful just from a government spending policy, which I think a conservative should agree with. It would also be better for working conditions for police officers, which anyone who supports blue lives would agree with. Like, this is just one aspect of critical race theory things. Like, it's sort of that, you know, you could improve policing while everybody wins, but because I say a big part of the reason I want to do this is because of the systemic racist activity that happens within policing. As soon as I say that's the reasoning behind it, he shuts off about it. But why can't you just be like, understand the material benefit of better policing irrespective of your partisan belief, right? Because I think everybody wins in that scenario, do they not? It's so strange. I actually don't know what his prescriptive advice would be in regards to policing. Does he think it's a good thing right now? Because clearly policing is not working for everybody. It works for him, but it's not like if we change it to be a better system, it's going to work worse for him, right? Like, we're not gonna say, hey, stop patrolling black neighborhoods and patrol James Lindsay's neighborhood. No, we're gonna say just stop patrolling fucking neighborhoods like that. You know what I mean? This is just one example. Really weird. I actually don't know what his or any other person like this, like, what's your prescriptive difference? Just keep it how it is? Isn't the cop good? Even if you think cops are good, wouldn't you want them to make more money and be worked less and have more healthy relationships with their job and have more healthy relationships with the community? You know what I mean? And not always have this antagonistic, am I about to shoot somebody approach, right? Or arrest somebody or whatever. You know what I mean? Wouldn't ending the drug war put less stress on cops? Seems weird. Anyway.
That it hopes for. That's what critical race theory actually is. Another way to put that,
he's defined it 3 different times, by the way,
is it's maybe the best parts of communism and the best parts of racism, 2 terrible, terrible ideas mixed together to break America.
I don't understand what the communism part is. There are lots of communists or leftists in general that agree that, like, things are racist. What is critical race theory? How does critical race theory lead to the economic organization of communism? Like, it doesn't make sense. That's really weird. Lindsay said racism bad. Lots of libs love CRT. I guess so. Actually addressing the material conditions of the people will make most policing unnecessary. Of course. Yeah, that's the point, right? Like, I really don't understand.
If you want to learn more about critical race theory and these other ideas and the critical social justice ideology, visit newdiscourses.com and check out the social justice encyclopedia called Translations from the Wokish.
That ad for his thing was incredibly cringe. So here's the takeaway, I guess, from it, before we move on. Takeaway is that James Lindsay is obsessed with the thing, but he doesn't know why. It must be a grift, right? Or is he like, he's almost like too obsessed for me to think he's only in it for money, right? It seems like he's just fucking weird. He just seems like a weird fucking guy. I think definitely part of it is he makes his money that way now. But, like, let's read a book about CRT. Like, he says he's read these things. That was short. Yeah, that was the point. Glad it was short. I don't want to watch any more James Lindsay content. So, yeah, I don't know. All in all, I have yet to find a reasonable argument against CRT, or which isn't what's being taught, but they call it that. What's being taught really is just more anti-racism stuff, which is good to teach kids. That's fine. I have no problem with that. He read a Telegram post? Oh, no. I think he's weird, and the money reinforces his weirdness. Unironic use of SJW in 2021. Did he say SJW? Did he say that? I missed it. Anyway, James Lindsay is a dweeb. And his ideas are bad. I have asked him to talk before, but he doesn't want to, which is fine. Smarter people than me have taken him to task several times, so Didn't Mark Lamont Hill talk to him once? Anyway, I don't know. If you want to follow James Lindsay on Twitter, I suggest not doing it. It's really boring. He's constantly like multi-thread tweets of like CRT, CRT. It's just really boring stuff. I don't know. Anyway, James, if you ever want to talk, we could hang out if you want. But well, CRT at college level, yeah, it's a law thing. Anyway, that's the end of the video.